and they have not thought through the ramification of what that means.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is from Sonia. It's a repeat question nonetheless. She has taken the time and trouble to write it, so I'm going to ask her, Professor, if you can address it in brief, maybe. Sonia, you're up.
Hi, good evening, Professor Mansur. Thank you for joining us today. I wanted to ask, and I think the previous caller did ask in a different way, whether is anyone in your community blaming you, or are you feeling any ramifications of having the beliefs that you do? And I also have, just so you know, I also have a second question as well.
Sure, you can stay on. Let Professor Mansur answer the first question, and you can stay on, Sonia. I can ask the second question after.
Well, Sonia, I do not honestly fully understand your first part of the question. Blame me for what? This is the first time I'm engaging in public on a
right. I guess blame is not the correct word, but is anyone against you, or does anyone say you have the wrong? Why are you thinking like this? Why are you not promoting Islam more, or being a good Muslim for that matter more?
Well, Sonia, I mean, it is an interesting question, you know, and it can be answered in so many different ways. For instance, being a good Muslim is like asking who is a beautiful person. It is in the eyes of the beholder. Also, you know, asking who's a good Muslim or who's a good Christian or whatever faith tradition that person belongs to or doesn't belong to, then the answer is you judge the goodness by the conduct, by the deeds, not by simply proclaiming who you are, what you are. As the Bible says, you will know the fruit, you will know the tree by its fruit. So I am not worried about whether people, that is the Muslims, say whether I'm a good Muslim or not a good Muslim. Their judgment or their views have no influence on me, because ultimately it is the judgment of God that only matters, not the judgment of who agrees with me or disagrees with me. So having said that, yes, there are a lot of people in Canada, here in London and across Canada, that is in the Muslim population, from the Middle East, from Pakistan.
And India. The reason I was asking,
I'll come to you. I just wanted to wrap it up. Who not only vehemently disagrees with me, but there have been very many occasions in which there have been unfortunate display of animosity and violence towards me. But that is also part of the hazard of being in public, engaging with difficult issues, whether it is an issue of call to prayer or any number of issues in which I have been engaged in.
Okay. And the reason I was asking was more for your safety, I guess. I wouldn't want you to be in any difficulty or anything like that. But my second question is, you mentioned before that you noticed, and certainly we all have, that the call for prayer was very almost secretively passed through council. Why do you think that was? What could be the reason for that? And I know I have my own ideas, but I'd be interested to learn yours as well.
What's after Professor Mansur is done, would you like to tell us what your ideas are?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Professor Mansur, we'll let you answer that question.
Okay. Yeah, in that article which Ram mentioned, and again, I hope you've had a chance to look at it. If not, you know, I'm going to briefly spell it out. It's a generic statement. Situation that might vary from place to place, you know. what the situation is in London might not be the same as it is in Mississauga, because people are different, and they come from different backgrounds and have different experiences. But generically speaking, as I pointed out, in any issue, there are a number of parties involved, whether it is zoning bylaw, whether it is traffic issue, or ultimately constitutional issues, you know. There are more than one party involved. In this particular issue, call to prayer, I pointed out, in my view, there are three sets of actors. One is the city authorities, because it is the city authorities that made the decision and gave the permission. They could have made another decision. They could have said, no, this is not going to happen because this is a general lockdown, you know, and we are going to not make this decision now, that we're going to go ahead and do it in the future through a proper engagement with public, that is the ratepayers of the city, in this case, the ratepayers of Mississauga. Or they could have said blankly, no, it won't be allowed, you know, but they did not. So the question is that they agreed and they gave the permission. Who did they give the permission to? So that's the second set of actors. They gave the permission to the mosque authorities. And then there is a third set of actors who were completely ignored in that broader sense. That is the ratepayers, the taxpayers of that city, in this case, the city of Mississauga or the city of London. Among the ratepayers and taxpayers, there are also Muslims. So those Muslims who do not agree with this, they were denied the opportunity to make their case heard and represented. So as you see, there are three sets of actors. So there's a one set of actors, the city authorities, they're politicians. So you have to look at this whole decision-making from the prism of political decision-making. What were their interests? What drove them to make this decision, you know? And that will, again, differ from city to city. In the case of Mississauga, as you all investigate this situation, you will have a whole set of reasons that you will find out, your authorities will find out why this decision was made by Mayor Crombie and the city councillors in Mississauga, as in Calgary or in Ottawa and so on. The second group of actors is the ones who made the petition. And here, it is extremely important to know that this group of actors who made the petition, that is a Muslim, they represent a certain political point of view. That is, as I said a little while ago, they have politicized their religion, and they're seeking to push the religion in a political arena for political purpose. So this whole decision-making is an exercise in politics, all right? Because the third set of actors never were given any opportunity to present themselves. So you have then basically two groups of actors involved. The city authority, the mayor, and the councillors, that is the majority of councillors who made the decision, and the mosque authority. Now the mosque authorities, if one goes into the detail of them, most mosques, I would say in excess of 90% of mosques in Canada, as in the United States, are basically administered and managed by those people who are, generally speaking, in the broader sense, fundamentalists, who belong to various political organizations in the Muslim world. And the dominant political organization that they belong to in the Muslim world, whether they're coming from the Middle East, or whether they're coming from Pakistan and South Asia, or other parts of the Muslim world, they belong to organizations that some of you might have heard about or know about. That is the Muslim Brotherhood and organization connected to them. Mm-hmm. So the Muslim Brotherhood is a political organization. They are engaged in pushing an agenda of Islam, politicized Islam, both in the Middle East and now in Europe and in North America. Their objectives are very clear, and we can go into greater detail about them. They are also the people through whom offshore money, predominantly money from the Middle East, that is Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, and Iran, has flown into not only other Muslim countries and other third world countries, but they have come into North America, into Canada, United States, and Europe. This is a lot of money that has come in. The estimates are huge. I have written extensively about these things. I've published books, I've written articles about it. In a period since 1974, with the first oil price quadrupling that took place after the 1973-74 Arab-Israeli war, to about the period 9/11, that is September 11, 2001, when the attack took place in New York and Washington. It has been estimated that somewhere in the ballpark figure of $70 billion was poured by the Middle Eastern countries, the oil-producing countries, in spreading their politicized views of Islam, that is Wahhabi, Salafi Islam, fundamentalist Islam, around the world. And a big chunk of that money came into North America. They have infiltrated with that money just about every institution of our democratic society. Our politicians at the federal level, at the provincial level, at the city level, our schools and colleges, our security forces, our police forces, our hospitals, our universities, our media. Money buys power, or money buys influence. So those Muslims, like myself, we are individuals. We might be the majority in the Muslim world because the Muslims have paid an immense price, and they have been the first victims of these people, the Salafi, Wahhabi fundamentalists around the world. And then there are other victims, non-Muslims. But we are not organized. We don't have any organization because we do not have that sort of financial muscle. All that we have is our own personal capacity to be honest, to be forthright, and sometimes to take the risk. As you asked me the question, what is the risk? So that's why so many people don't speak. But some do, as I have done, to take the risk to talk about the situation in the world in which we are living in today.
Professor
And so that is exactly what has happened in this situation. When there has been a lockdown and an exception has been made by the city authorities. The city authorities have made the exception, but do not for one moment have any doubts in your mind that all levels of politicians are engaged in this, because they're all watching it. And so the city authorities have made a decision precisely for political purposes. They have been purchased by the financial resources that these people have, and there is the quid pro quo. Mm-hmm. They believe that by doing this favor to the Muslim, they will have a lock on Muslim vote during the election. So that's the weaponization of religion. Religion at the deepest level and at the most profound level is a man and a woman's relationship with his and her God. It is personal. It is private. We live in Canada, which is a secular country. It is not officially declared to be a Catholic country or a Christian country, though the majority of people in Canada are of Christian tradition. We are a secular country, just as America is a secular country. In other words, religion and politics are two separate worlds. They should remain separate, you know. But that issue is now endangered and imperiled by the behavior of the Muslim fundamentalists on the one side and the political authorities on the other side in our secular democracy, privileging one group of people over the rest of the population on the basis of religion.